if it was a company, that company can be coerced, right? Why does Google get to read all of our messages? Because they were coerced, right? The government showed up one day and said, if you want to be the biggest, you will truncate your fiber. One closet for you, one closet for us. Like, really? I mean, like, all our data you get to see for, what do we get out of that? You get to exist. That's a real story. That's real. Yeah. So is it possible? For sure. I mean, the NSA created SHA-256, right? So,
Since May 23rd, Bitcoin has been stuck in a narrow trading range that is just under $110,000, which has been frustrating bulls and stirring market debate about the cause of this persistent resistance. The price has been stuck within a tight band of $3,500, indicating that investors are trying to exercise caution in the face of macroeconomic uncertainty. This is despite the fact that there have been multiple attempts to break through this ceiling. The anticipation surrounding the policy direction of the United States Federal Reserve, forthcoming economic reports such as the PCE index and jobless claims, and global geopolitical tensions are all important factors that contribute to the current state of affairs. Wait and see is the attitude that traders are adopting, and technical liquidity zones are forming both above and below the range that is currently being traded. When the price breaks out in either direction, these zones act as magnets, increasing the likelihood of a sharp move occurring in either direction to follow. Despite the fact that short-term volatility is anticipated due to significant events such as NVIDIA's earnings and the ongoing buzz from the Bitcoin conference, the current tug-of-war between bulls and bears has created a tightly coiled setup that is waiting for a catalyst.
So, I mean, it's totally logical, and I've had the same thought. I've actually done real work on this from the very beginning. So when it first suggested to me, I went to the source, the internet, and I typed in, who's Satoshi Nakamoto? Curiously, what comes up is Intelligence Central. The name Satoshi means intelligence. Nakamoto is the name of families from the central provinces of Japan. Like, that's curiously close to CIA.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So then you dig a little further. Curiously, in 2006 or 7, I can't remember the exact year, I think it was 7, there is a paper sponsored by the NSA, written by Satoshi Sakamoto. You can look this up, like, it's true, Satoshi Sakamoto, who was the chief technology officer at NTT in Japan. And it talked about a peer-to-peer cash system. Curious, interesting, okay, interesting. So I dug deeper. I'm like, all right, if you were in charge of the global reserve currency and you saw the writing on the wall that that was going to go away and the only end game was devaluation. And what I mean by that is once you get into debt, you have 4 options. You can pay it back, okay? You can restructure it, you can default on it, or you can devalue it. Can't pay it back. Like, you could seize all the assets of every human in America, you couldn't pay the debt. Mm-hmm. Not just their income, but all their assets. You couldn't pay the debt. So paying it back, off the table. You can restructure it, like gives people 50 cents on the dollar,
right.
But someone's got to take the other side. Not many takers for that, but you could try. You could default. Politicians, what happens if you default? You're out. Politicians don't like to be out. I joke all the time, there's no left, there's no right, there's no Republicans, Democrats, there's in and out. When you're in, you do or say whatever it takes to stay in, and when you're out, you do or say whatever it takes to get in. I mean, think about it. Ronald Reagan, not a Republican. He was a lifelong Democrat. He's like, I want in. I'm going to be a Republican. Donald Trump, same thing. I mean, it's in and out. So they're not going to default on it because they don't want to be out. So you're going to devalue it. Debase. And that's been the history. Look, there have been 775 paper currencies in the history of the world. 3/4 no longer exist. They all went to zero. All the others are going to zero. Look, the pound sterling, it's called a pound sterling. It's the oldest currency still surviving. It's like 326 years old, something like that. It used to be, for a note, you got a pound of sterling silver. Today, it's like 194 pounds. So it's just been devalued to, cents on the dollar or fractions of a cent on the dollar. So the key here is it possible that, the other one is if you look at Satoshi Nakamoto, Sa comes from Samsung, Toshi comes from Toshiba, Nakamichi, and Motorola. So you could say it was a bunch of tech companies, but I don't believe that one. But the Central Intelligence Agency makes sense to me. Why? Because if I'm the world reserve currency and I see the writing on the wall, what if I got everybody to swap the worthless fiat into this cool asset, and then I seized it all out the back door? Now, we're, again, super lucky. We, by happenstance, we have 3 general partners, and then we have a venture partner, and our venture partner is Scott Stornetta. If you read the white paper in the back, there are 8 footnotes, 3 of them, Scott and his partner, Stuart Haber. Scott coined the term blockchain. He and Stuart, this is great. They said, if I lend you money, Aaron, we need a judge to make sure that we keep our ledgers the same, okay? But the problem is, if Mark's unscrupulous, he could bribe the judge to change the number. So we need a judge to judge the judge. Well, then he could bribe both people. So we need a judge to judge the judge. He says, well, we need everyone in his, that's a blockchain. So he was brilliant, Stanford. And so he's got 3, white paper notes. And so I asked him, I said, what do you think of this? He said, interesting theory. Nope. I'm like, Scott, come on. You didn't even think about it. He says, well, no, I did. But the way you're thinking about a backdoor is impossible with Bitcoin because of the air gap. I'm like, but then as soon as he said, but with Ethereum, you could have a backdoor. Whole nother story for another day. But that was really interesting. So is it possible it was NSA or CCP? Sure. I don't think it was CCP because CCP is going down their own digital currency. Look, digital currencies, government digital currencies are evil incarnate, right? I mean, programmable money. I mean, all you got to do is watch Augustin Carstens for even a minute 47, Jabba the Hutt or Kingpin. I mean, not good, right? Of course, we should have the power to control how you spend your money. No, you shouldn't. So is it possible it was, Satoshi Sakamoto and NTT and the NSA? Sure. Is it likely that it was one person? No. Yeah. Do I believe it was 4 people? Maybe, one who passed away, another one who's in jail, and that's why, multi-sig and you can't move. Is it Craig Wright? Hell to the no. But I don't think it matters in that the beauty of the system is that it is anonymous. Like if there was a CEO or if it was a company, that company can be coerced, right? Why does Google get to read all of our messages? Because they were coerced, right? The government showed up one day and said, if you want to be the biggest, you will truncate your fiber. One closet for you, one closet for us. Like, really? I mean, like all our data you get to see for, what do we get out of that? You get to exist. That's a real story. That's real. Yeah. So is it possible? For sure. I mean, the NSA created SHA-256, right?
At the same time that optimism is growing regarding regulatory developments and positive technical indicators, XRP is exhibiting signs that can be interpreted as a potential breakout. The SEC has just started looking into WisdomTree's application for a spot XRP exchange-traded fund, ETF, which began on May 27th and has already been successful in improving market sentiment. The likelihood of approval has increased to 84% on platforms such as Polymarket, which represents a significant leap from the expectations that were initially held. On the daily chart, XRP is forming a falling wedge pattern, which is a classic bullish reversal signal. This situation is technically significant. A breakout above this level could trigger a rally toward $3.40, with intermediate resistance located at $2.60 and $2.80. Traders are keeping a close eye on intermediate resistance near $2.42, which is a key resistance level. Additionally, the Relative Strength Index, RSI, for XRP has increased from 31 to 47, which lends support to the bullish statement. In order to maintain momentum, it is necessary for XRP to maintain support above $2.20. It is possible that XRP is poised for a significant upward move in the coming weeks, given the growing interest from institutional investors and the favorable environment within the ETF market.
Why it's divisible, because there's trillions of Satoshis. I mean, actually quadrillion, sorry, 2.1 quadrillion. So the key is that, yes, stuff's going to get lost or stolen. Maybe the Nakamoto million never show up. Maybe the government does see some. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. He said it, because remember, it used to be he, she, they, but then he self-identified once as a he. So we know it's a he, or some number of he's, but there is at least one he. And he said, consider it a donation to the community. If you lose your keys, and it's so elegant because we've all lost money, right? We've all lost cash, or we've had a bank account kind of, we forget about it. But that's different because they just print more. The problem with fiat is, like, there are stories where they open up a house and they see all the cash buried in the wall. No one missed that cash because they just printed more. But we know how many Bitcoins are because we have a permanent, immutable truth. And again, the aha moment for me was 838, now 839 years, we've had a trust system. Banking is built on trust. You give your money to a bank because it's not safe to hold it all yourself and carry it around. So you trust them. But I actually have a recurring nightmare, not like every day, but maybe once a year. Go to the bank and punch in my code, because I do have an ATM card, and it says $0. How would I prove it's not zero? I don't have a statement. I haven't had a statement for years. Is their word against mine? Now, I could probably prove, because of old receipts or something, that I used to have money and now they say I don't. But it would be their word against mine. So that trust actually is a great system. I know people piss on it and they say, oh, it's terrible. I'm like, without it, we'd have still a pretty crappy life. I will argue fractional reserve banking is what created progress as we know it, but okay. But do I be my own bank better? Yeah. Is it going to happen overnight? No. So until such time that we get there, there's going to be this interim piece of CeFi, and I think Coinbase is doing a great job and others doing a great job. But ultimately, do we all go DeFi? And is it, someone said this morning, every financial transaction in the future will be AI to AI, no humans.
Right.
Yeah. You know what? A simple example. You get in your car today, you pull up the gas station, you get out, you pump the gas, you take a plastic card and you tap. Are you kidding me? In the future, you won't get out of the back seat, not the front seat. The car will fast charge and the car will pay the machine and you'll drive away. And that's better. Or you get into traffic and you want to go in the fast lane. Okay, now takes a picture of your license plate, sends you a bill and you write a check. Oh my God. No, the car will pay the lane. And so, yes, those AIs will certainly interact, but do I think no human activity will be there? Will there be no human speculators? I doubt it, but maybe. Yeah, one of the two. So certainly possible, but I don't think it matters because once you unleash this system into the world, it's an adaptive biological system. The miracle was it got to $1.
Interesting.
1 to 100, not a miracle. 100 to 1,000, not a miracle. 1,000 to 10,000, not a miracle. The miracle was that anybody used it at all. Tomorrow is Bitcoin Pizza Day. We're going to celebrate. I should remember his name because he is a really, really important person in our history because he proved that you could use this.
Bought a pizza with it, right?
Yeah, and he bought 2 pieces for $10,000, which is over $1 billion. And everyone's like, oh, you're such an idiot. No, he's a mad genius because he proved that this worked. And so the key is that once you release an adaptive biological system and it survives, it thrives and it morphs. And one of the things I love about the debates, everybody's like, Jamie Dimon says, well, Satoshi could show up tomorrow and change the code. And Jameson, I love Jameson. He's like, no, Jamie, here's the lines. And it's only 7 lines. But in order for that to change, more than 50% of the nodes would have to agree. Now, that can happen. That's a complex adaptive system. But one guy can't show up and change that. It's not the way it works. And so it's such a beautiful and elegant system. It actually defies logic to think that one person could have got it all right. Think about this. The 51% attack will never happen. How do you engineer that as a single human being? How could you come up with this game theory to say there'll never be a 51% attack because the moment you achieve the 51% attack, the value would go to zero because all the other nodes wouldn't acknowledge what you just stole. So there'll never be a 51%. It wouldn't make sense to spend all those resources to do a 51% attack. Like, oh my God, that's mad genius.
One of the most prominent investors and advocates for cryptocurrency, Mark Yusko, is bringing attention to a significant development. The regulatory environment in the United States is constantly shifting, and as a result, financial institutions are gradually adopting digital assets such as Bitcoin, XRP, and stablecoins. Yusko claims that traditional financial institutions are no longer merely observing the situation from the sidelines. Rather, they are actively integrating assets that are based on blockchain technology and getting ready for the next wave of digital finance. Increasing pressure for regulatory clarity is accelerating the shift, particularly in light of the fact that multiple crypto-related exchange-traded fund applications are currently being evaluated, and bipartisan momentum is building for legislation that is more transparent. The acceptance of digital assets by institutions represents a significant shift, as it positions these assets not only as speculative tools, but also as fundamental infrastructure for the development of future financial systems. According to Yusko, the convergence of banking, cryptocurrency, and policy represents a significant turning point that has the potential to usher in widespread adoption at a faster rate than many people anticipate. The regulatory framework is becoming more stable, which is resulting in the strengthening of the bridge between traditional finance and decentralized assets. This is paving the way for significant changes in the way capital is transferred around the world.